Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today I'm delighted to speak with another icon in the industry, a true entrepreneur, started his business, I believe, about 17 years ago. It's a name that you all know. His company is EventMobi. He's the founder and CEO. This is Bob Vaez. Bob, I'm so happy to finally we find the time to speak with each other.
Same here. I'm here to learn from you, Eric. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense.
That's very kind. You know what? I'm gonna show this recording to my kids. They will love it.
Okay,
Thanks for
sounds
saying
good.
that. But no, your journey is absolutely amazing. So I'm speaking for business owners and small business owners in our industry. EventMobi is definitely a brand that everybody knows about. But before we talked about EventMobi, what is Bob's journey? I would love to hear what you did in your life and how you became an entrepreneur and created EventMobi.
Oh boy, my journey is a journey of being a troublemaker since I was a kid. I guess you could call it that way. I loved science and math, and even though and but by the way, soccer, which is like World Cup is happening, so I got to make sure I make it to the game after this podcast. But that was kind of my passion, sport and computers, and ended up going to computer engineering. That was kind of my starting point. But I think I'm a bit of a more than an extrovert and an introvert, and I love conferences and spent about the first 10 years in chip design, believe it or not. Sort of really hardcore computer hardware manufacturing. And as much as I loved it, I also hated it because it was just like you're in a lab, you're working with like these devices, and it was very intellectually stimulating. Very few people in life get to do that. I think we were talking about this before. Actually, my last job was working for NVIDIA, so I was helping them build their chips. And maybe I
Which
should.
is a small company that nobody has ever heard of.
I have this conversation with everyone. Is like, do you think about you should have stayed there? I'm like, yep, but no, because I did the
I have to
calculus.
tell you, that's exactly the question I had in my mind when I was looking at your profile. I said,
Yeah.
no, he's got his own business for 17 years.
Yeah, it's really funny how life works because we all have our own path, and it's just really, you should never go back in time. I'm so grateful for being here and doing what I do there's no regret in my life. And I think that's the way I live. Starting a business, if you talk to any entrepreneur, I think that's what they will tell you why they started. It's like, I just didn't want to have the regret of not doing it because I would just not be able to live my life always thinking about that. So yeah, if I said at NVIDIA, I probably would be way richer financially than I am today, but I wasn't happy. I was working with the best people. I honestly had one of the best managers. I had really good coworkers. The company was the reason NVIDIA is there. And I worked there in 2006 to 2009. Like this was like they were not obviously as big now, but the culture of the company was very forward, collaborative. They were risk takers, very systematic, innovative. I loved working there as a job, but it just like I just didn't like the job. And it's like, why do you wake up every day and wait till it's 5 p.m.? Like that's the time you know you have to change your job. And that was kind of the point. And I was doing my MBA. This was in Santa Clara when I was working, and I was doing my MBA on the side in the evenings. I was working for NVIDIA full time, and I this is true. I loved going to conferences. So every time, because I was in manufacturing, there was an opportunity for me to go do a training or to go explore new products or whatever it is. And for any engineer that works in the Valley, they always have a side business going on because that's how it is in Silicon Valley. Everyone's trying to start a business. I also had like a bunch of other I call them side business, but they were really side ideas. It's not really businesses. And one day I was like, I'm going to these conferences and I'm like, I have this like back then with the Microsoft pad with a stylus and tote bag full of like show guides and material. I'm like, why is this not in this phone? And this is like 2000, I think this was 2009. And I was like, there's an idea here. I don't know why no one has thought about like putting all this content in here. So I used my MBA class because they're all like sales managers and different companies. It was like, what do you guys think about this? And one of them said, hey, we have a sales conference. Do you want to test your
Ah,
product? And I didn't have a product. I just had like a bunch of like PowerPoints of ideas.
wow.
So I teamed up with a friend of mine and my brother. He's 10 years younger. He's also studying computer engineering back then. This is like 2010 and 2009. And I was like, guys, let's build something so we can demo. So we built the product very fast
Wow.
and we demoed it at their sales conference. And the feedback was amazing. And people were like, oh yeah, this is good. Like we want this. And the event manager was so helpful. Like it would sit down and be like, yeah, these are all the problems because I love going to conferences as an attendee, and I knew what
Yeah.
my challenges were as an attendee. I had no idea of the business of events. Like I don't know what goes on behind the scene. And I was like, as an engineer, I was like, what? You get your speakers pictures from emails? Each of them email you? That sounds crazy. How much time do you spend on this? It's like, I don't know, like 20 hours. Like I sent emails back and I like look at his email, like, we need to automate this. This is like way back then. So that was kind of my starting point in the event business was, hey, this business is so powerful in terms of bringing people together, even in terms of education back then. This is like when social media was just getting big and conferences were like critical for like discovering new products, for education, for networking, finding jobs. I was like, and then I looked at the behind the scene and I'm like, this is like such a huge opportunity for improvement. So that was kind of my into the conference business as an attendee, but working with planners telling me what are their pain points, and then I'm thinking about how I can kind of help them. Didn't really know what the business was going to go. I think we were gonna build a consulting business. I was telling you at the beginning, I love sports. So soccer was my number one sort of pastime. Skiing was the second one. And the dream was, hey, let's start our business for event planners, build custom apps. And I convinced my brother not to get a job after university. And let's go move to Whistler. We become ski bums. We ski during the day and we build event apps at night. That was kind of the
Tough
dream
life.
at the beginning. And funny enough, I'm actually skiing way less than I did before I started the business, which is always the game. But yeah, it was interesting beginnings. And I moved back home with my mom, back home in Canada. That's where I was based out of, and she was very excited because like, great, my son is back. I can feed him. And I thought it was just going to be a quick stop in Toronto and then go back to US. And I think what ended up happening, we realized that we can build a business in Canada and grow in US and Europe. So we became a very, very quickly international company. I was traveling all the time. We hired people all over the place in US and Europe. So kind of our core is, I would say, is a US Canadian company because I really started the idea and the business in California. Then I moved back in Toronto to kind of grow the business. And right now, about 80% of our business is in US, 10% Canada, and other 10% in kind of Europe. It's funny to think about the past because the path has been like really zigzaggy up until here.
Yeah, it's never ever a straight line, ever.
Yeah, and
No.
every entrepreneur has their own crazy stories, right? So I think we lost the business three times like every event business. Like you had the recession, you had COVID, yeah. And then
Yeah,
now with AI, it's like who knows what tomorrow's gonna bring. But I'm excited.
absolutely. And we're going to talk about it in a few minutes, but let's go back to when you start the business. So it's 2009, 2009. You're convincing your brother to come and work with you, and then it's the subprime crisis. He wants to kill you.
Oh, you remember that?
I do.
Okay, here's a funny story. Funny but not funny. But they say the best businesses are born during recession. And I mean, I had no idea. I had no business background. And I should share that this was my fourth business. The other three didn't really make it out of the product market fit. I could never really make it into a profitable business. So I was just idea, build a prototype, realize it's not going to work, and I close it. I could never grow a business. This was the first time they were like, hey, there are customers that are going to pay us. So during the recession, uh, I think there's opportunities because everyone is now looking at, and I think AI is the same thing, right? It's not a recession, it's actually the opposite. Everything is growing, but
Yeah.
massive change is happening, and people are now questioning status quo and how we do things. It was the same idea. If you remember, a lot of businesses were going bankrupt, event businesses were going bankrupt, conferences couldn't really support it, businesses were cutting back on events and travel. And I had no idea because I was not in the event business. I was an attendee excited to be like, hey, I love going to conferences. This product can be better for me as an attendee. And what ended up happening back then was we realized people were looking for new ways to create sponsorship opportunities, and they saw this as another vehicle. They were trying to cut costs, and the print costs were pretty significant. And there was kind of the beginning sort of echoes of sustainability and hey, we shouldn't really have that much waste in the event business. And
Mm.
that was, to be honest, wasn't really the goal of this building an event app. I mean, this is like such a commodity now. Back then, even the name event app didn't exist. You had to kind of coin it. We called it mobile event guide at the beginning, then it changed it to event app.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And I think at that time, the opportunity was there is a problem and there are people looking for a better way of doing it. And you, and if no one has done it, then this is, let's go give it a try, because it's not because no one, there's no competition. There's competition, but
Wow.
there's
Yeah.
a better way of doing it. The challenge, I think, is finding the right timing is, I don't know if it depends on the economy helps, like if you're like starting a business when the economy is growing and you're riding that wave. But I think in a tech product, there's also the tech wave. So if you're on the, and we caught two waves, and I didn't know this at the time. There was a lot of businesses and software businesses that were on premise and they were going what now we know cloud, right? Like Salesforce and all these tools. Like even Salesforce, their biggest struggle in 2007, 8, 9 was people are like, what? I'm going to give you all my sales data and it's on the internet, on the cloud. I want it to be in my office, like on my
Yes.
server, right? So there
Yes.
was this shift in terms of cloud software, and there was a shift with mobile that was coming really fast. And we were really lucky that we started this at that time. And I think the recession was actually a catalyst because people are like, hey, maybe we need to do something with our events. We need to cut costs. We need new sponsorship opportunities. We need to create better value for attendees. Like we need engagement, can be improved networking. And the event app had all those promises. When you
Mm.
didn't have it, it was a totally different experience. And I think we were just at the right time with the right product and the right pricing. I wouldn't lie, we got lucky, right? It's like 50% of any business is luck, and you got to admit, it is what it
Absolutely.
is.
For every bit, absolutely. You're talking about sponsorship. How have you seen the event sponsorship evolving over the years, and how do you see that the participant now are looking at sponsor? Is that anything different from when you started?
I think there's a lot of differences. I'm not an event planner from my background, right? So I work in as a vendor, as a tech vendor. So I come
Right.
at it as from a different angle. I don't sell sponsorship, but I build the tools to help conference organizers sell it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we go to a lot of conferences as sponsors. I think pre-pandemic, we used to do 80 shows. So some of it was our own road shows. A significant portion of it was we used to have a booth at every industry event because that's the way you want to make sure your brand is visible. You're meeting your customers, you're learning about competitors. I think that the traditional way of sponsorship is brand awareness and visibility. So I have a conference, I bring the people, I set the schedule for the content and who are the speakers, and the sponsors are there to take advantage of my work as a planner. So you give me your logo, I'll give you visibility. You don't have any say in the program. I think that was kind of the traditional way of thinking about sponsorship. And in the old world of, I call them analog sponsorship, like billboard and so on, is like you just want to make sure you create more touch points anywhere your potential customers are. And conferences are just the most beautiful place because it's the right people. If you pick the right conference, the right people are in the same place and they're kind of captive. So they have to look at your logo. But it's like, how much can you generate interest and demand from a logo? So what I think that has changed over the last, I think 20 years, maybe even before I started, is there's this movement around can we actually create more opportunities for sponsors to be participants and have more active participation in the program. I think there's a lot of conferences that do a great job. It's not easy. You have to have really deep relationship with your sponsors. You have to understand your market really well. But my experience as a sponsor is I don't need to get the if I can get the list of the attendees before the conference, I think that's the game changer for any conference. It's good and bad because the good part of it is if I can tell people that I'm there, I'm kind of prepping people for their arrival. Now,
Right.
the bad part of that is if every sponsor does the same thing, you kind of create this mass spam
Yep.
pre-conference, right? So we do everything we can to make sure we can get the list. Sometimes the list is given, sometimes it's not. We got to go guerrilla tactic and do it. But we are very cognizant of our brand. We don't spam people. We make sure we pick the right people, the right segment. We work really hard. I have two people on the team. They go through the list and segment this audience. And I kind of think about it as like, why am I doing it if the conference organizers were, instead of saying, here's the list, or I'm not going to give you the list, they gave me like the 50 people I care about, right? Because really,
Yes.
that's what I really need to go after, right? I'm doing so much work, like weeks of work as a sponsor to do it. So I think a lot of conferences are getting much better in terms of like creating this segmented audience, but there's a huge opportunity, and I think AI is helping to cover that gap to help the
Mhm.
organizers create these micro groups so that they
Right.
can sell sponsorship to like multiple sponsors. I think the days of gold sponsor, silver sponsor. It's like it still works for small, medium conferences, but I think there's a lot of money left on the table because you can have 100 different sponsorship options. You can sell your email list to every single exhibitor, but not the whole list. You can sell 20 emails here, 50 emails there. Anyways,
Yeah.
we can talk about this forever. But the other part of it, I think, is involving sponsors in the content and the program. If you think about it in any industry, not just event industry, the sponsors are the vendors. The vendors are the providers of the tools in whatever category or the industry they are. Without
Yeah.
the vendors, there is no industry, right? So they're kind
Correct.
of a critical part of it. They're inventing the future. So I kind of sometimes find this fascinating that in so many industries, conference organizers have this mentality of like, sponsors, I love them for the money, but I hate them because they're like their salespeople are like, ew, they're like ruin my event. They're like reach out and they like I don't want them. Like, don't talk to these people. Don't. And I think that's partially on the companies because instead of sending their experts to educate and build relationship, they're sending salespeople all the time. And as
Yeah.
a salesperson, I'm just doing my job. I'm trying to go there and create awareness and trying to build contact. So if the organizers learn more about their sponsors and being able to involve the sponsors in the workshop, in the content, um, and bring a customer, I think that's just like the most untapped potential. I think in our industry, ASAE does that really, really good.
American Society of Association Executives
Yes, that's right. That's right.
that Michelle Mason is running. Yes.
That's right. Since forever, I remember like to get a speaking slot as a speaker, it's like your best chance is to team up with a customer. So they want an association, a customer, to come share that story. And I think that is very few organizations do that. And that has it's a double opportunity because you bring another potential attendee to create exposure, and that cost sometimes is covered by the sponsor. But then now
Hmm.
you have both the sponsor, the buyer, and the seller kind of in the same room talking
Right.
about the challenge of the industry. So again, I see that as the second part. So the first part is like the segmentation of the audience, enabling, selling more sponsorship. It's good for the organization. It's good for the sponsors. Then the second part, involve them in the content. And then the other part that I feel like, again, is an untapped potential, but it's very hard to do for a lot of events that don't have a lot of staff. I mean, we were talking about this before the podcast, is like a lot of our customers are like event teams of one or two or three. Right? There's only so many things you can do. But I think as a sponsor, the best way to build a relationship is not even that appointment at the show. It's the activities. The, like if I go back in my last like 10, 15 years, the best experiences I've had as a sponsor is when there was a bus ride to this outside activity in the town, and I was hanging out with like five or six other really cool people. And yeah, they were also potential customers, but the way I built the relationship was as just as a human being, as like, oh, these people are really interesting. They have really interesting stories, and we share a couple of hours of
Absolutely.
experience together, and then there's a
Yeah.
level of bonding that and trust that happens. And I think that's missed for a lot of organizations to be able to kind of create that activities. They are truly like the best sponsorship opportunities for the sponsor because that's how they
Hmm.
build the relationship, not on a show floor. Like when we think about it, it's like, oh, people are walking by the show floor and then you just go there and like try to grab them to scan their leads. It's like, I don't think that's how you generate business.
No, and actually, you remind me of two stories that I personally experienced. The first one is when you go to a conference, and I remember one of the MPI World Education Conference, had a young member that was working for an hotel and came and she said, "What do you advise me to do? Because my boss told me that I need to bring back a piece of business." And then I went, "Go home right now." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're gonna waste your time." I'm not saying it's not gonna happen, but that's not how it works. If you're looking long term and building those relationships, and it's gonna be much more effective, and long term results that you're gonna get. But the second story that's up to your point about vendors or sponsors sending just their salespeople and that's it. Thing was EIBTM. At that time, for whatever reason, most of the hotel chain were measuring the impact of their salespeople at the trade show by the number of business cards they were bringing,
Yeah.
which was crazy. And I quickly realized that going to one brand to the booth, I had Bob with whom I had a meeting. And then while we were speaking, Bob's colleague will come, interrupt us, and ask for my business card. And I said, "What is this?" And so I developed a routine. When I was speaking with Bob, I would take his business card, putting in the right pocket of my suit, and the others I would take their business card and putting in the left pocket of my suit. And the next booth, the Bob of that booth, I will take the business card and put in my right pocket. And all the others that were coming, you see where this is going, I would go into my left pocket and give them the business card from the previous booth that they were not
Oh
even
no.
checking. But so you have, and I totally agree with you. You have the sponsor, the vendors, the relations that are being built, but there's the other side of it. It's the attendees and the attendee engagement, and that has also evolved, right?
Yeah, one other thing about talking about attendees, let's do a test here. What do you think is the number one reason attendees go and check out trade show booth?
I hope it's not for the whatever gift they're getting. I hope it's not.
I hope it's not the swag, yes. But
Yeah.
so we did a bit of an internal study and we found that the best messaging for us that resonates with our customers is they just want to know what's new because they're at an event, they need to go back to the office and tell people something really cool, something really, and I'm not saying it superficially, like, hey, I learned this thing. We didn't know about this thing. This thing exists. Maybe we should go explore it. Because other than that, why are they there? Like they can check everything online, right? So they're going there to meet the people so they can ask those questions that's not possible and actually figure out what is new, who is different, who has a different pitch, all in one place. And it's a huge missed opportunity for both exhibitors and sponsors not talking about what's new. And I think it's a missed opportunity for organizers to not squeeze out from the sponsors. Tell us why you're coming to this event. There's a reason you're here. Tell us what's new so we can share your information pre-event and we can give you more publicity. There's all these like little techniques that I think people can use that has massive impact both ways. But
Mm.
yeah, engagement for attendees has always been the game. I think since ever, if you think about it, if you're a speaker, like the first time that you spoke, if you generally ask people, it's like, does anyone have any questions? If no one raises their hand, you either did a phenomenal job, which is rare for any of us, or just this, like you were just like completely off topic and people are just like bored and like no one knows what you're talking about, right? So just even the notion of asking a question at a session is like we think of it as an engagement. I mean, engagement is so many different things to so many different people, but I kind of think about it as myself as an attendee, I engage when I'm not sitting there and just being fed information. So if there is a way for me to participate, there's a workshop, I can ask a question, I can interact with other attendees. Like the most unengaged event to me is a seminar. I go there for 1 hour. They check me in. I go sit in somewhere. Someone speaks and I leave. Right? That's like the most unengaging and stuff like that still happens. And actually, in some cases, they have some value, like to
Right.
some degree. I mean, they're not. You can some people argue they're not events, but like okay, seminars are events. They're just 1 hour about a topic. Webinars sometimes are the same way, right? The old ways of webinar is like a guy gets on a screen with a PowerPoint and there was pre-pandemic, there was not even a chat, right? You just talk for 1 hour. So I think engagement has it is kind of rising and rising over the years. And now I think it's even more significant because of AI. Because if you think
Mm,
about it, now everyone is talking about this. This was kind of a new topic a couple of years ago, but there is so much content out there because of AI. There's so much noise. Not
yeah,
only that, you don't even know who to trust. Like, who wrote this
yeah,
content? Is this even real or is it just made up by AI, right? So there
totally.
is this notion of lack of trust, too much noise, too much information, no time, anxiety. And I think that's driving a lot of people to want, when they go to an event, they're looking for something different than just content, right? They're looking for the speaker bringing what is new and different, like some original ideas. They're looking to talk to people. They're looking to ask that question live from the speaker because they know that answer comes from the experience of that person and the
Right.
taste of that person rather than AI just generating something very unique. So all this stuff, it kind of blends together this authenticity of events, interactiveness of the event, kind of leads it to, I mean, you're the expert at this because you've been doing this for decades, but the experience that people talk about leads to memory. And depending
Yes.
on the goal of the event, it's either retention and education or maybe it's for making change for sales, whatever that's the case. All those experiences leads into something that people remember that causes hopefully a change after the conference. And I think the other thing that happens after that is that you end up sharing that. So if you have a good
Yes.
experience, which means you had good engagement, then you end up sharing it. And most likely you will come back again next year because you had that. So again, it's all a loop connected together. And I'm speaking more as an attendee than an organizer because again, I have so much respect for our customers just running these massive 2,000 3-day events with like $1.5 million budget that they run with a team of 3 people. How they create these experiences is just phenomenal. But I think as an attendee, we kind of crave more engagement. We don't want to go there, just sit there and then just be told 60
Absolutely.
minutes of session.
Absolutely. And to your point, going from even logistics to experience-led strategy, that's a point I've been hammering for years. That's actually how, around the time that you started your business, I remembered speaking with my business partner in Belgium and said, I don't get it. When you go to a prospect and you ask the sales director, why do you run a sales meeting? And say, oh, we do it every year. I was like, oh my God. And how do they justify that to their board or to the C-suite? But most importantly, as a vendor, and I'm talking like the business owner, the agencies, the small business owners, the solopreneur in our industry, the best way to differentiate yourself is instead of asking logistical question like how many people coming, do you want a welcome cocktail or a farewell party, it's going to, okay, I understand that in your industry, these are the challenges, that your two competitors are this and that. You're trying to convey this message this year. Is that correct? Okay. So, what do you expect from this face to face, this sales meeting, this incentive, this product launch? How are you going to measure success? That's where you're making the difference.
Yeah. There was a demo, AI demo that Julius Solaris ran a couple of weeks ago. He created a lot of buzz and we became one of the sort of main sponsors for that. And we had a keynote session, and at the end, we were doing prep work before the sessions to figure out what we want to talk about. And then obviously we were talking about AI and automation and all these things. And then he said, "Okay, Bob, so the event planners save all this time. What do they do now?" And I was like, "Oh my God, that is such a good question." So, okay, we saved all this time, right? We don't have to worry about logistics. We don't have to worry about all these little details. What do we do with all this extra time? Do more logistics, do more events. And I thought about that for a whole week. Honestly, for a whole week. Like I ask people, I like use the AI to ask, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what is amazing about when you think about event budget and the timeline? And again, I come at this from a vendor side, is time. You have this project, and yes, you have a fixed budget. It could change based on your number of attendees and the tickets and the sponsors, but your time is very limited. And if you could get rid of some of that grunt work that is like now can be done
Correct.
with AI, and I hope there's a whole topics session that we can talk about this because every event is so different. And I think the part that becomes so critical and talking about logistics to experience is the people. So what if you could spend that time not on doing more events and doing more logistics, but actually like talk to your vendors more, understand your sponsors,
Yes.
talk to your speakers, help them
Yes.
create a better experience for attendees. Because usually event planners have a vision, an idea for their events, a theme, a vibe that they want, but it's really hard to, you can program it, but like speakers are not computer bots, not yet. So you need to explain to them and you need to walk them through. So you need to have a team, you need to train your speaker team to make sure to prep the speakers to work in that. If there's a theme going on, if it's a sales conference,
Yeah.
for example, everyone's on cue. You want your vendors to behave in a particular way. You want your team to behave in that. So I think there's all this human time that is not available to a lot of event organizers. Because if I think about like you probably worked with the same number of event planners over the last that over the, we're both really old, so like we have a lot of experiences. But I think there's two things that is very unique about conference organizers and event planners. One, they are so detail oriented, and two, they are truly um, human connectors. They
Yes.
understand humans. They have a really high emotional intelligence. And I think that's not being used when you're spending all your time on spreadsheets and trying to follow up on emails. So
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting topic of like where does this sort of not like how much logistic work should planners do? Because I mean, even the name planner talks about you think about it as planning for the event is all about logistics, but you were just talking about is like a huge part of the planning is the planning for the strategy and how do you turn that
Totally.
strategy. And I think you turn that strategy into action by talking to people, right? It's not about like shipments.
You do, but it's also to me to your question about what you do with the time that you save, especially for business owners, whether you're a one person or you have a small team. To me, the two things that are important. First, the time that you have more, or you're getting back, if you want, is think about yourself. Think about your personal well-being. Think about hobbies or things that you always wanted to do and never took the time for yourself. Because the more you balance and happy in your life, the better you will be as a professional. But the second thing is, especially today, block time, even an hour per day for two things, 2 hours per day. One for studying and learning and reading, and the second one is to reach out to your client and prospect. I'm always fascinating, and I have a room full of planners and business owners. And I ask them, how many of you have at least 1 hour block in your calendar to reach out to your customer and prospect every day?
That is such a good
It's
advice. Yeah.
it's fascinating how few people have that. So that's how I would go about it. But talking about those independent even business, how do you think that they can compete against larger brands or larger organization? What would be your advice there?
Ooh, again, I'm not running any of these businesses, so take my advice with a grain of salt. But at least as a supplier to a lot of event agencies, and I think we support a lot of small, mid-sized event agencies at EventMobi. I think there's 150 agencies that use EventMobi annually to run their clients' events. But there's a couple of challenges that I kind of think they have, and now the gap between the large brands and the small teams is closing. One is staff and training. I think the training now with better tools that are out there in terms of organizing the data, like even our meetings are being recorded all the time. If you do that with your employees, and you don't really need to even think about like creating onboarding guide. You just turn all that as recording. You just dump that 10 hours into that you trained the last person, and then you basically
Mm.
ask Claude to create a training for your next person. It's not going to be perfect, but it can kind of get you there. So a lot of this stuff, if you think about it, the bigger brands have a lot of people to do it. They have a recruiting team, they have an onboarding team, they have a marketing team. And I think that's where a lot of small businesses are gaining advantage because the number of people and the size of the company that does a lot of this grunt work, I don't think is going to be that significant anymore because now everyone's on the same equal footing because a lot of it can be done with AI, right? So following up with emails,
Great
automated
point. Yeah.
emails, like finding people, like doing research. So that's one thing. And it's, again, it's very unique for every business. Like even for us, EventMobi is not a very large business. We're 100 people, maybe a larger event tech company, but
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, we're not a large company in the tech world. We're very small, but we are using a lot of these techniques and a lot of tools for marketing. Our marketing team is really empowered by automating research. We have a bunch of tools to know what our customers are saying. We don't have to like review calls hour by hour. We kind of use AI to do that. And marketing team can be more connected with the customers. But the one thing that I feel like, and I'm also the CEO that doesn't really do anything anymore, just going to meetings and hopefully I'm helping people, but usually I'm just like bugging people these days. But I think it's that level of insight because there used to be so much information, especially for a small business owner. Like you got your QuickBooks with the cash flows, you got all your expenses, you got the employees that are having these like problems, and then you got these customer questions, and like, how do you know where you have to spend time? And you have all these tools, all these software tools, like they all have their own dashboards and all these things. And then you have to go learn it, and you have to go like run queries and all these things to figure out what it is. And then next week you have to do it again. I find it really powerful the way AI is helping us with insight and just analyzing what we already have in front of us. It could
Yeah.
be as simple as what were the most common questions our customer asked us this week? What is my team's excitement so I can kind of share that across the company as a CEO? If you have a CRM like HubSpot or whatever it is, like you can just use their own AI tool or use Claude Connected and just ask about any sort of insight. You don't even have to do reporting anymore. AI does that for you. So all these things that
Yeah.
I think larger organizations have a team. They have an expert in HubSpot and they have an expert in like HR and they have this. You can do as a small business owner,
Absolutely.
step by step. You may not be able to do all of it, but I think it has helped quite a few people kind of use automated routines so that they just don't feel lost
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
level of noise. I don't run a small business. I know a lot of our customers, like their agencies are like 10 people, 15 people, or small associations we work with. They're very small teams, like 6 people and or 15 people, and there's like one planner and a coordinator and an education director, and they have to do everything, right? I think that can be a huge advantage to be able to use some of these tools to have less anxiety, hopefully. I know it also sometimes creates more anxiety because you're like, oh my God, now I have to do all these things. But
Absolutely.
it's really hard. But I think everyone can kind of figure out, it's like, what is the one thing that if I could do, it would save me time, it would help reduce my anxiety, it would help me do something better. And just focus on that and like you can figure it out
Absolutely.
step by step, right?
And to your point, Bob, I think also that that's what I've observed the last 3 decades is that people are not necessarily investing in their own education and in their own structure, and that's obviously what we're providing, but also creating this environment where you have other people that you can talk to. No
Yeah.
one build a business alone. That doesn't exist.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think that's where talking with your potential colleagues and a community kind of helps you refine your focus on business and your taste. So we were talking about like AI and why people talk about taste is the differentiator. And I think if I think about our own business, like event agencies, usually the top talent of a larger brand after like 5, 6 years, you kind of realize like I can do this better on my own. You quit that job, you start your own business. Your superpower is not really working Excel. Your superpower is your insight and understanding and your taste, right? Is like of how you see the world and how you think this event can be different.
Yeah,
And I think that taste it can be the differentiator between small agencies and large brands because large brands are run by large teams. There is really no taste. They have a formula, they have a framework. Every event kind of goes through that copy
totally.
paste. Whereas small agencies can really bring that their unique experience and taste into life, especially when they're spending less time on Excel and logistics
Totally.
and
Yeah.
spreadsheets.
Absolutely. Bob has been very insightful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I appreciate the fact that you're focusing on bringing values to your customer, to the industry. But before we end this podcast, I still have two questions. The first one, give us like the quick pitch about EventMobi and how people can reach out to you or the website, and what about the company?
Sure. We are an event management platform. If you're running an event, it's a serious event, and you don't have a team of 10 people, and we are the right tool to help you build your website, registration, batch printing, event app with everything automated, all your data in one place. It's basically one tool to help you take your event from idea to hopefully making a lot of money. That's what we do at EventMobi, and you can learn about it on eventmobi.com, eventmobi.com.
Thank you. And my last question, because when we were discussing before recording this episode, we spoke about our common friend, Jason Gaignard, and I learned that question there. I mean, I heard that question there for the first time. I love it. It's one of my favorite questions. I'm going to ask it to you now.
Oh,
In 1 year, when we meet with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
oh boy, I was not prepared for that one. This is the problem with entrepreneurs. We have so many goals that we sometimes lose focus. But if I really have to think about celebrating, I would love to have a user conference for EventMobi. I mean, that sounds crazy, but I haven't said that to my team in a long time because I'm really worried they're going to get stressed and be like, no, we don't have time to do it. I would love for our customers to meet in person. We've been running this business for 17 years. We did a bunch of road shows, a few years in New York, San Francisco, Toronto, London. And I think it's about time. Like we have enough customers that hopefully love us and they're willing to come hang out together for a couple of days. That would be awesome. Yeah, if you could have an EventMobi user conference, that would be pretty cool. And maybe I can reach out to you to get some tips because I've never run a user conference.
With great pleasure. Bob Vaez, EventMobi, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it, Eric.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business of Meeting podcast. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you enjoyed the show, the most important thing you can do is leave a review and share it with your colleagues. It really helps spread the word. I truly appreciate your support. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't forget to visit eventbusinessformula.com to learn more about how we are helping even business owners like you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.